I remember the exact moment everything in my marriage shifted. Not with a scream, not with a fight, but with a sentence spoken so casually it felt like it had been rehearsed for years. My family always comes first. You're second. She said it while scrolling through her phone, her thumb flicking upward like she was barely aware of the weight of what had just left her mouth. She didn't flinch. She didn't apologize. She barely looked at me. I was standing at the kitchen counter slicing limes for a dinner she'd asked me to make. The knife paused midair. A tiny drop of lime juice slid down the blade and hit my hand. It stung, but nowhere near as sharply as her words. Second, not a partner, not an equal, not a husband. Second, I lifted my eyes to her. She didn't even look up. Good to know, I said. My voice sounded strange, like it belonged to someone calmly taking notes as the ground cracked beneath his feet. She kept typing, probably replying to the family group chat that buzzed our phones every 5 minutes. Her parents, her siblings, her cousins, they were the center of her universe. I'd always known that. But until that moment, I thought there was room for more than one orbit. Turns out there wasn't. That night, while she laughed on the phone with her sister for over an hour, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The house was dark, but my mind wasn't. I replayed the years, the sacrifices, the compromises, the canceled plans because her family needed something. Again, I remembered how many times my needs were later, while theirs were now. I had done it willingly, thinking love meant choosing someone even when it was inconvenient. But what happens when you realize you're the only one doing the choosing? By morning, the answer was clear. I wasn't going to compete for first place in my own marriage. If I was second in hers, fine. I would finally make myself first in mine. It started quietly. Subtle, invisible shifts only I could feel. At first, I opened a separate bank account. No drama, no confrontation. Just a simple transfer of the money I earned into an account with my name only. I stopped volunteering to fix things for her parents. I stopped being the emergency chauffeur for her cousins. I stopped rearranging my schedule every time a family crisis popped up. Usually something trivial like her brother locking his keys in his car, or her mother wanting help rearranging the living room furniture for the third time that month. I didn't announce anything. I didn't make threats or speeches. I just stepped back, quietly, like a man walking out of a room without shutting the door. But changes like that don't stay invisible for long. She started noticing. Why didn't you send your half of the joint grocery money this week? She asked one morning, frowning at her phone. I used my account, I replied. From now on, I'll cover what I use. She blinked. Since when do you have a separate account? Since I decided to. A shadow flickered across her expression, but she let it go for the moment. A week later, she asked me to drive 40 minutes to help her brother move a couch. I didn't even look up from my laptop. I'm busy, I said. She stared at me as if I'd spoken another language. You're always the one who helps him. Not anymore. Her eyebrows pulled together, her voice a tight whisper. What's gotten into you? You told me where I stand, I said simply. I'm just arranging my life accordingly. She opened her mouth but closed it again, confused, annoyed, but not yet alarmed. She still believed everything would stay the same because, for years, it had. She was used to me absorbing the weight of every obligation her family created. But men don't break in one night. They break over years, quietly, invisibly, until one day the crack becomes a fault line. That day arrived sooner than she expected. It was a Sunday morning when her phone rang, and I knew from the tone of her voice that it was urgent. Her mother had some sort of panic attack, nothing life-threatening, just enough for everyone to treat it like the sky was falling. She burst into the living room where I sat reading. We need to go, she said, grabbing her purse. Mom needs us. Us? I looked up slowly. Yes, come on. I'm not going, I said. She stopped mid-step. What do you mean you're not going? I mean exactly that. Her voice rose. My mom needs support. And you should go support her, I replied, turning a page. Why are you acting like this? She snapped. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She stormed out alone. She came back that night quieter, watchful, suspicious. The balance had shifted, and she could feel it. Over the next weeks, I kept living my life, separately, peacefully. My spare time became mine. My plans became mine. My money became mine. I started going to the gym consistently, picked up hobbies I'd let die. I reconnected with friends. I breathed in a way I hadn't in years. It wasn't revenge, it was recovery. But people who are used to being centered feel abandoned the moment they're placed anywhere else. And she finally began to understand that something had changed, something she had caused but didn't know how to undo. Then came the night everything snapped. I was in bed reading when she walked into the room holding her phone, her face pale and frantic. "It's my dad," she said, voice trembling. "He fell. They're taking him to the emergency room." I closed my book slowly. She took a shaky breath. "We need to go." And she hesitated. "I need you to pay. My sister's card is maxed out. My mom, she can't, and you know I don't have enough in the joint account." There it was, that familiar expectation, that automatic belief that I would drop everything, time, money, energy, and rush to solve things for her family again. She waited for me to stand up. I didn't. "Did you hear me?" she whispered. "I did." "Then let's go." "I'm not paying," I said calmly. It was like the air disappeared from the room. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. "What?" "I'm not paying," I repeated. "My family needs help," she said, voice rising into panic. "And you told me you always put them first," I said. "So now I'm putting myself first." Her eyes filled with disbelief. "This is different. This is serious." "So was my place in our marriage," I said quietly. "But you made it clear where I stood." She stared at me, the reality hitting her like cold water. She wasn't looking at the man she'd taken for granted for years. She was looking at the man she'd pushed into second place and expected to stay there forever. Her voice broke. "Please, just this once. Please help." For the first time, I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel pressure. I felt clarity. "This," I said, "is what it looks like when I stop sacrificing myself to prove my worth." She sank onto the edge of the bed, trembling. The weight of her own words finally came back to her. Not the ones spoken tonight, but the ones said so casually weeks earlier. "My family comes first. You're second." And now she was living in the world she created. She called a rideshare, hands shaking, and left alone. The door closed behind her softly, but the silence that followed was heavy, like a chapter ending. I lay back down, eyes on the ceiling. Not angry, not triumphant, just done. And for the first time in my life, being done felt like peace. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was worried, though part of me expected I should be, but because my mind was too quiet, too still. That kind of stillness only comes after years of carrying weight that wasn't yours. When the weight finally falls off, the silence aches. She returned home near sunrise. I heard the door open softly, like she didn't want to disturb me, though she knew I wasn't the one who needed tiptoeing around anymore. She paused in the hallway before walking into the bedroom. I didn't move. I just watched her from my pillow. Her eyes were swollen and tired. Her hair frizzed from the humid hospital air. Her shoulders sagged like she'd aged 10 years in a night. "How is he?" I asked. Her lips trembled. "He's alive. He broke his hip. They're doing surgery tomorrow." I nodded. "I'm glad he's okay." She blinked at me, searching for something familiar in my expression. Some echo of the man who used to leap to his feet for every crisis her family manufactured. But that man had taken a step back, then another, until he finally found a life where he wasn't an afterthought. She looked away. "It was hard last night." "I'm sure it was." She swallowed. "I could have really used you there." I didn't respond. Silence is a language too. She sat on the corner of the bed, rubbing her arms. "I kept waiting for you to call," she whispered. "You never called me," I replied. She looked up sharply. "I thought you'd come on your own." A small, sad smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. "That's the problem. You always expected me to show up, even when you showed me I didn't matter." Her eyes filled with tears instantly. "I didn't mean it like that." "You meant it enough to say it," I said, "and enough to live by it." She shook her head, breathing unevenly. "I was stressed. My family relies on me. I didn't think it would affect you so much." "Because you didn't think of me at all," I said softly. That landed. I saw it hit her physically. Her spine straightened, her chest tightened. It was the first time she had to face the version of herself I'd silently endured for years. I messed up, she whispered. Yes, I said. You did. She looked down at her hands, twisting them in her lap. Are you punishing me? No, I said gently. I stopped punishing myself. She flinched. I sat up a little, resting my back against the headboard. Do you know how many birthdays, dinners, trips, and quiet moments of mine were interrupted because someone in your family needed something? Usually something they could have solved themselves? Silence. Do you know how many times I canceled my plans, rearranged my schedule, emptied my pockets, or let go of my own needs because your family called and you told me we had to go? More silence. Do you know how many times your expectations became obligations? How many times your guilt became my responsibility? She covered her face with her hands. And do you know, I continued, my voice steady, how many times you made me feel like a placeholder in my own marriage? A broken sob escaped her. I didn't realize, she whispered. I didn't know it hurt you like that. You didn't know because you didn't want to know, I said. Because you were comfortable. Because my sacrifices benefited you. She looked up at me, eyes red. Please, just tell me what to do. The old me would have taken that invitation, would have explained, guided, soothed her, and made the path easier. That's how I'd lived for years. But this version of me, the one who finally put himself first? I shook my head. I'm not here to fix what you broke. She stared as if I'd slapped her. I continued. I'm not here to rebuild what you ignored. I'm not here to teach you how to treat me. That's something you should have known the moment you married me. She buried her face again, shoulders shaking. The room filled with the sound of her breathing, her quiet sobs, the weight of a truth so heavy she could barely hold it. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she whispered, voice trembling, I don't want to lose you. I watched her, not with anger, not with revenge, just clarity. You lost me, I said. The moment you decided I didn't deserve to be first in my own marriage. She shook her head violently. No, I didn't mean. I know what you meant, I interrupted. I know exactly what you meant. Her breathing hitched. Can't we fix this? Fixing something requires both people to stop pretending it wasn't broken. She closed her eyes, tears slipping down. I stood up and walked to the window. Morning light seeped through the curtains, soft and golden, warming the cold air in the room. Cars moved quietly outside. Life continued, indifferent. When did you open the separate accounts? She asked suddenly. A few weeks ago? Why didn't you tell me? Why would I? I asked. You made it clear we weren't a team. She stared at me, realization dawning. You were leaving already. I wasn't leaving, I said. I was living. And now, she whispered. I turned toward her. Now? I'm choosing myself. Her lips parted, trembling. But I need you. I nodded. And I needed you too. The difference is, you didn't notice. She slowly slid to the floor, sitting with her back against the bed frame. I had seen her sad before, frustrated before, but never undone. Never confronted with the version of me that didn't bend, didn't accommodate, didn't disappear into the background while she prioritized everyone else. She had no map for this territory. I walked past her and left the room. I made coffee, toast. I sat at the kitchen table and listened to the ordinary hum of the refrigerator. For once, the silence didn't feel lonely. She eventually walked in, still pale. We need to talk, she said. I've done my talking, I replied. She pressed her palm against the table as if steadying herself. Please, please don't walk away from me. I lifted my coffee. I'm not walking away, I'm standing still. You're just not used to chasing. She let out a weak, shaky breath. She was unraveling, and part of me felt the ache of shared history, shared memories, shared years. But the other part, the part she had buried under years of neglect, finally felt alive again. I want to make things right, she whispered. Tell me how. You can't heal a marriage by needing me only after your family does, I said. You can't put me first as a last resort. The truth landed. Hard. Her voice cracked. I love you. I know, I said quietly, but love without respect feels like charity. She covered her mouth with her hand. We sat in silence for a long moment. Then I spoke again, softer this time. I'm not telling you we're over, I said. I'm telling you the version of me you took for granted doesn't exist anymore. She looked at me like she was seeing a stranger, a man she loved but had never truly known because she'd never needed to look. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and headed toward the door. She jumped slightly, panic flashing across her face. Where are you going? Out, I said simply. For how long? I don't know. Her eyes filled again. Are you coming back? I paused, hand on the doorknob. That depends, I said, on whether you want a husband or a servant. The door clicked shut behind me. Outside, the morning air was cool and crisp, gentle, honest, the kind of honesty I'd been starving for. I walked, not fast, not slow, just steady. Each step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself, pieces I had traded away over the years without even realizing it. I didn't know what the future looked like. I didn't know if the marriage would survive. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. For the first time in my life, I wasn't second to anyone, not to her family, not to her expectations, not to her idea of what a husband should be. I was first in my choices, my boundaries, my voice, my life, and whether she learned to meet me there or not. This time I wasn't moving.